Begin, allow me to share a little bit about who we are and why this space exists. This network was born in response to the experiences of spouses like us who bring incredible strength, talent, and resilience to our military families. But many face unique challenges such as navigating immigration and legal systems, overcoming employment barriers, adjusting to military culture, and often do it all far from their native country and support systems. So we exist because too many spouses are quietly struggling. They're highly educated but underemployed or unemployed. They're fluent in multiple languages, but often feel unheard. They're caregivers, volunteers, and leaders in their communities, but often invisible in national conversations about military families. So FMSN is here to change that. We provide training, resources, mentorship, advocacy, and most importantly, a community, a place to be seen, supported, and empowered. Our goal is to ensure every foreign-born spouse can thrive economically, emotionally, and professionally, no matter where their journey begins. So thank you for being part of this space, and we are happy to be building something powerful together. Now, quick housekeeping. If you have any questions for us about our network, please feel free to drop them in the chat or send them to info@fbmnetwork.org. I'm going to share that in the email. Now, I'm excited to welcome our guest speaker, Pat Hubbell. Pat is a founder and executive director at Candorful, a platform designed to help job seekers improve their interview skills through structured practice and feedback. She has spent more than 8 years building Candorful, helping deliver practice interviews to over 6,000 veterans, transitioning military members, and military spouses. Before launching Candorful, Pat worked as a management consultant at PRT, now part of PwC, supporting Fortune 500 companies on product development and strategy. She also worked with Cornell's MBA program, helping students prepare for careers in consulting and technology. Pat holds an SM/MBA from MIT Sloan School of Management and a BS in Mechanical Engineering from the University of Rhode Island. Pat, thank you so much for taking the time to join us today and to share your knowledge with our amazing community. Now, I will hand it over to you, and I will be listening just like everybody else. Thank you, Pat.
Lydia, thank you so much for having me again to talk to you and your wonderful military spouse cohort. For those who perhaps attended last week, I apologize. I all of a sudden went away. Poof, our internet went down and it took me like 45 minutes to figure out that I had zero control over it and it was actually our whole neighborhood. So I felt really bad, but I am back. I also ask you to excuse me. It's allergy season, and sometimes I end up coughing, and I apologize for that. And the third thing I want to apologize for is I talk fast. I try to slow it down. I will consciously try to slow it down. It's particularly tough for people who are English is their second language. So I apologize again. Lydia, feel free to break in if people are starting to struggle or if I'm blurring my words. I have no problem with that. My husband says I talk faster than he can hear. So, I've been trying to fix this for a long time. Um, and so what we're going to do is I'm going to share my deck, and there might be people who have seen the beginning part, but we're gonna go from the beginning again. And I apologize. I think the implication is most people are new. Is that right?
Mhm.
Okay, right. Oh, can you make it so I can share?
Oh, yes. There you go.
Thank you. Much better. And please feel free to add questions into the chat. And Lydia, you are perfectly welcome to interrupt me, and even other people are welcome to interrupt me so that I can deal with a confusion in real time rather than you don't have to wait till the end. So Candorful is a 501c3 nonprofit. That's a lot of detail to tell you that we've developed this as a nonprofit so that we can help people like yourself with practice interviews. We do our work for free, and I want to underscore that there is no cost to you if you're a veteran, military spouse, or transitioning military. So as you're all military spouses, this is not an issue. And the way we work is that we're really a matching platform, right? So we have 130 coaches from across the country that we connect with people like yourselves to practice interviews. We have specific processes, which I will tell you about. But suffice it to say, what we want you to do is schedule practice interviews with us so that when you're doing your real interviews, you're feeling confident and you've corrected perhaps easy corrective steps with us where there's no job on the line, right? So our coaches are not professional coaching graduates. They are people from industry who do interviewing as part of their jobs. What I mean by that is these are people actually in the workplace, interviewing people, seeing wide varieties of interview styles, figuring out who they want to hire, knowing and building the skill to identify good candidates, and actually going to hiring meetings where they're discussing candidacies with other people in their organization, which means they're hearing other people's point of view about how a candidate did in their interviews, which means they're well informed on what a good interview is and what a good interview or a bad interview is. So these are people actually doing it volunteering from their real job. So they come from amazing companies, PwC, Amazon, Oracle, Dell, Verizon, and a lot of other companies. They come from a wide variety of industries, and we'll talk about that later. So here's a good view of what goes on in a Candorful practice interview. So this is one of our former coaches conducting an interview over video conferencing live with Lietzel. Lietzel was still in the military at the time, and he's doing a real interview with her. And he's also scoring her. You can see on his computer, just kind of a rubric, if you will. He's scoring her and how she's doing. And after they complete the interview, he's going to give her verbal feedback. He's going to tell her how she did. He's going to give her a chance to ask questions, perhaps even redo one of her interview questions. And so that there's an understanding of how, from her perspective, of how to get better as she gets off the video conferencing. They spend 45 minutes together. So technically it's scheduled for an hour, but they spend 45 minutes together. After they complete the interview, complete the feedback session, the coach is going to write up the feedback on that scorecard and shoot it off in an email so that you have not only the verbal experience, but you also have a reminder. You have this scorecard to look back at to remember where you have room to grow and where you're doing well. So again, they're all live. There were video conferencing, opportunity for Q&A and feedback, and our coaches are from industry, free to you guys. The goal is to make you interview ready. The reason we do video conferencing and not in person, there's multiple reasons, but the primary one is takes geography out of the equation. Our coaches are all across the U.S. You could be, for all I know, outside the country right now with your spouse, and you can still meet with us, right, over video conferencing. So we just take geography entirely out of the equation. As mentioned, our coaches are from a wide variety of industries, law, legal industry, finance industry, consulting industry, e-commerce, retail, wide variety of industries, biotech, pharma, which is great. And I love that the whole purpose of the way we do it is to build that. But I also would argue that if you are somewhat new or inexperienced with interviewing or feel you need to get your legs under you, it almost doesn't matter which coach you choose. You just want a coach who's experienced so they can give you good feedback. So don't get caught up too much in the finding the perfect industry, but know that our coaches are all experienced. So this slide is really important. So if I've already put you to sleep, I should jump up and down and wake you up. But I want you to see this slide because I want you to know how to log in and schedule your interviews. So here's the thing. What we want you to do as step one is schedule one intake meeting. So a 30-minute intake meeting. And to do that, you go to candorful.org. I know it's a little bit small there, but candorful.org. And at the top of the page, there's a Get Started tab. Click on Get Started. You have to click through a few more times and schedule one 30-minute intake meeting. It's going to ask you for a lot of information that will kind of help us build knowledge of you. After you do that intake, we will give you information to schedule 3 or more practice interviews. Why 3 or more? We feel 3 is the kind of the sweet spot for gaining confidence. Now, we're not going to hold you to it. If you choose to do 1 interview, that's fine. If you choose to do 5, I think you're making a good decision. but we try to get people to do at least 3 because the first one can be incredibly uncomfortable. It can actually shake you up a bit. We'd rather shake you up with Candorful than shake you up in your real interview. So we want you to do more than one. Again, we're not going to chase you down. We'll do a little bit of chasing by email, but we're not going to chase you down. So what we encourage you to do is schedule that one intake after we do the meeting and you learn how to schedule your interviews. I encourage you to go in and schedule 3 right away. We'll tell you about how fast, et cetera, to do all that. But again, it's one intake that you're scheduling now, and it will be 3 or more practice interviews later. And then practice, practice, practice. So here's a blow up of our webpage, just so you get a feel for what to do. And I think some of the terminology has changed a bit since I made the slide. So you're going to go to candorful.org, get started at the top, and I think it's military veterans and military spouses in number 2 now, but you'll get the picture. Choose that and click through a little bit more and schedule that one intake meeting. So why should you do this? Okay, we have a lot of data to support the reasons that it's valuable to do this. I'm going to start from the bottom. So 94 to 97% of candidates that respond to our surveys say that Candorful was incredibly important for them in landing their job. So we ask them this after they've been employed. 94 to 97%. 99% say that Candorful not only helped them improve their skills, but help them gain confidence. And going into an interview confident is very important. They even, a large percentage even use terms like amazing, eye-opening, game-changing. We have a net promoter score of 99. I know that's not common statistical knowledge, but what it means is it measures how likely you are to tell a friend or a family member to use a service. 75 is considered kind of the hot spot to try to get there. It's hard to get to 75. And we are humbled by a 99. We think this speaks to how well we do it, as well as the need for it. And so then moving up, over time, I can tell you we have 130 coaches. We've conducted workshops to support, workshops like this one, to support veterans and military spouses for 3,750 people last year alone. And since our launch in 2018, we have conducted 11,000 coaching sessions for 6,000 people. So there's a lot of data that this is based on, and it really does make a difference being prepared. The example I use for veterans is, I'm going to come up with a military spouse one if I can, is that, when you go into combat, if you're a paratrooper, you don't have your first jump be when you're in combat. You've practiced, you've jumped out of airplanes more than a few times before you get to combat. But likewise, if you're trying to get fit, you don't go to the gym and spend 3 hours lifting weights the first time. You work up to it, you practice. I've got a run I'm doing as a fundraiser this weekend, and I have to run 4 miles. I'm not going out running 4 miles for the first time on Saturday. I've worked up to it. I've practiced, right? So everything worth investing in is worth practicing, and that's what Candorful does. And this is just a sample of where people have landed in jobs. It is far from complete. It's just to give you an idea that people land in great places. So I'm going to pause. We're going to talk a little bit more about advice for interviewing, but I want to pause, if that's okay with Lydia. I want to pause and see if anybody has questions about Candorful and what we do. Good? All right, everybody still awake? Is it time for afternoon nap? Okay. All right, hopefully everybody's still awake. Let's see. So let's talk a little bit about interviewing. The job interview mindset, the thing you need to think about when interviewing is not just, what do I want to tell them about me? That is important, right? That plays back into this. But you need to think about how the interviewer is thinking. And they're thinking, who will add the most value to my organization, right? So who is going to be that puzzle piece that brings value? Which means you need to think about how to express that and share that information. Now, this, I think, is a very cultural shift for some people. And Lydia, please tell me if I'm wrong here. But it is very hard for some people to talk about themselves and their impact in past jobs. Now, I can tell you culturally, this is hard for veterans to do. And because military spouses are part of the veteran or the military world, it tends to extrapolate to them as well. Now, add to that non-US cultures where humility is perhaps a stronger thing to do. I apologize, my cat is eating my printer. It's just putting something down. Okay. And so it is important to know that in an interview, it is an exchange of information about you and about the company, but about you. This is an appropriate place to talk about yourself and what you've done. And it may feel uncomfortable. And we're going to talk about how to think about that. But you need to be able to express how you will add value to the organization. And you can gather information about how to think about that from the job description and, very importantly, from networking, from having had conversations with people in the company or perhaps people even in the group that you're working with. And then part of that is using your background and your experience to talk about how you will fit with that company. Whoops, hold on. Apologize. Hard to tell a cat that they're not being professional. So talking about your fit is very important. All right, so let's talk about the old mindset and the new mindset that you need to have. So the old mindset might be, if I talk about myself and my accomplishments, I am arrogant. The issue is you're not arrogant, because the new mindset, the way to think about it is you are there for the interview to share data about you. Without data, this is probably the most important thing I can tell you. Without sharing your data in the interview, they can't hire you because they don't know if you're going to add value or if you are a good fit. You have to share data that expresses that. That means sharing information, like really data information, so quantified information and information about things you've done in a more qualitative standpoint as well. If you keep humility at too much the forefront, someone else who shared the data better, even if they're not as qualified, is going to get the job. So the new mindset is think about it as sharing data, not bragging. It's going to feel like bragging. It is sharing data. Also, the old mindset is talking about the team and what the team delivered. Now, that is important, and you do want to express things in a way that explain that you are good working with teams or leading teams. But you also have to be very, very clear about what you did in that team, what your role was, what you brought to the table, and how you made an impact on that team. Again, without that, for all the hiring manager knows, you simply went along with what the team did and brought coffee to the meetings. So it has to be clear exactly what you did. All right. I've heard everything from I'm a veteran, I'm a military spouse, it'll be easy to get a job, to I am a veteran, I'm a military spouse, no one wants to hire me. I've heard everything, and the truth is neither are correct. The ability to get a job is based on the ability to provide value and fit to the organization. So it has nothing to do with whether you're a veteran or military spouse. And in fact, probably the number one mistake I see military spouses do in their elevator pitch is lead with, I am a military spouse. There's nothing bad about that. And I think you should be very proud of being a military spouse. What isn't good about it, that it is not relevant to the job. And in fact, most military spouses say they are concerned people will not let them have the job because they believe they won't stay long. So don't lead with the information that you're concerned about. Lead with the information that shows you are a good value to the organization and a good fit. So I want to be clear, I'm not telling you not to be proud of it. You should be. What I'm telling you is to lead with pertinent information. And the other thing I hear people saying is, I'll deal with interviews when I get there. I've got so many other things to do, my resume, my networking, my kids, my current job, whatever. I will wing it. Don't wing it. Practicing doesn't take a lot of time, but informs you in a huge way and builds confidence. So it's not an event, it's a journey. You should practice. Candorful makes it incredibly easy, no cost to you. Yes, you can do it with people you know, but unless they're people who are doing interviews as part of their real job, it's not going to really be an interview. It can get you kind of going, but they won't necessarily be able to give you the feedback to really be prepared and to know how to kind of deal with your emotions when you're tense and nervous and uncomfortable. So I do want to pause again here and make sure that there aren't any questions. Lydia, did anything I say not resonate for this group?
Everything resonated. And if I can add something,
Please do.
that part that you said, practice, practice, practice. I tell you, the first time I went, because I did Candorful as well. And that's the reason we like to bring all these resources because most of us have used them. So having gone through that process, the first one I thought I sounded so awesome. I thought I was hitting every nail. I was like, yeah, yeah, yeah. Oh, only to be like, wow, you talked a lot, but I wouldn't hire you. I didn't hear your value. I had a list of everything you did, but I didn't hear how it related to this, how that had that, this. And I was like, gosh. So, and the feedback was really, really direct. And the next time I actually went with a job description. And that made it even easier for the person on the other end to say, hey, I'm asking you this based off of what this industry is about and the questions that they might be asking. So it was a technical interview. And by the third time, they couldn't believe how I was performing. It's like, is this yours? Like, yes, I have done everything you've said and I've put into practice. And by the time I was going for the real interview, there's no way they wouldn't hire me. And they ended up hiring me. So I'm happy that Candorful was part of that journey for me to gain confidence because I came from a country and that was the first time I was interviewing in America having practiced. Before I was just interviewing and hadn't known what to do. But having been given that information that now I needed and I could use, look at what the results were. So highly encourage you. You're doing a great job. This mindset thing is what I had not known, and having known it through Candorful, it was just amazing.
Thank you, Lydia. And I do want to, reinforce what I said earlier. I've lived in the US all my life, so there may be pieces here that I'm not going to get. And that's why, you guys should speak up and say, but I don't get it, or, I think you're wrong. I can handle it really. Because you might say something that is worth talking about with the group. So don't hesitate to disagree with me. That's how we learn from each other.
Mhm.
Okay. All right. Back to our deck here. So let's talk about the different pieces of an interview. The elevator pitch is a common one. All right. And I think in the military community, I think people say far less in general than they should in their elevator pitch. So let's talk about what an elevator pitch is. It's the formal introduction of yourself in an interview setting. And the thing is, you really do need to interview yourself in the context of you want a job, right? You want a job at this company. So think of what you want them to know about you. Here's the data sharing, right? What do you want them to know about you? Of course, it's hard to know exactly what to say. So go back to that original puzzle piece slide I showed you and think about it, read the job description and get to know the industry and think about what you bring to the table and what you could, if you could magically transfer information from your head to that person's head, what do you want them to know? And those are the things you're going to have to tell them, right? You're going to have to say it out loud. No, you don't want it to go on for 15 minutes. So you want to tell them everything, but you want to give them the general top level. Now, when Lydia introduced me, she went through my degrees and she talked about a couple of places I worked. That's kind of the level you want. And then you can even throw in, and my favorite guilty pleasure is that I like to eat ice cream, which is true. And or that I have a rescue cat at home. You can throw in something fun at the end as well. Those things sometimes actually help break the ice, and that question you may get questions about ice cream or the cat or your favorite book, which can be wonderfully disarming in an interview. So just think about what you want to say relative to your experience. So think about it as experiences from your past that illustrate your fit into the future, into the organization. So experiences from your past that illustrate your fit, and then things you're proud of from the past, and things that you're passionate about, and hopefully they're somewhat related, right? So for me, back when I was in the job search last time, I would talk about destination imagination, which is a a thing at my daughter's school that I volunteered for, but it was also problem solving related. So it was related to my career path. So I said in my spare time, this is regarding the item on the right here. In my spare time, I'm a coach for Destination Imagination in New Hampshire, and we do this, this, and this to teach problem solving skills. Boom, right? And it's showing alignment with my engineering and management consulting background, but also gave them something interesting to think about. So experiences and things that are passionate from the past. So it's the data. It's the data. When you're going to have interview questions as well, which we'll get to, and that will be more data sharing. But the elevator pitch, people say, how long should it be? There is no perfect answer. I don't know, a minute, 3 minutes, probably those are the ranges, right? And if you're saying, hi, my name is this, I've been in the military, or I'm a military spouse and I'm looking for a job in IT, that is not an elevator pitch. That's saying nothing about you. So you need to bring something forward that actually talks about you. Okay, so let's get into the interview, the meat of the interview. The way to deal with this is to answer the questions, almost all the questions using the STAR format. There's also SOAR and PAR. I'm going to teach you STAR and then PAR. STAR is the kind of the standard. PAR to me is easier, so I'm going to teach it to you both ways. So when somebody says, tell me about a time you had to deal with a difficult person, or tell me about a time that you had to do this or that, you want to talk to them about the situation that you were in, the task or the thing you were going to do next, the actual action you took, and the results you achieved. So what I want to tell you is that each piece of this is important. I think situation and task is hard to differentiate. So as I'll talk about PAR next, but notice the little drawing at the bottom. So you want to hit each of these lines. So you want to talk about the situation and the task. The action is really where a lot comes out about you. That's why I drew it as the longest line. And the R is just as long as the other two with the S and T lines. So a lot of people just say, and then I was done sort of thing, and they don't really talk about the result. You need to describe the result. Was it a good project, and how do you measure in your head? And if you really don't think about it before you go in to your interviews, what you did and what the result was, so you're prepared to talk about it. And notice the way I drew it, if you forget one of these things, even though the action line, which is really important, is up high, it actually, everything falls apart. They're all related to each other. So that's what STAR is. And you're probably saying, well, which things should I be prepared for? Again, think about 3 things from your past that are related to where you're going in the future, 3 projects, 3 programs that you worked on. Or if you're straight out of school, 3 things that you've studied, or 3 school projects you've done. And then 2 or 3 things you're passionate about, and rehearse not the questions, but rehearse what those projects were. So you remember what you did, you remember some detail, and you remember what the results were. So PAR to me is a little easier to remember. Problem, action, result. Describe the problem, describe the action, describe the result. Hit all 3. The reason I put STAR out there is a lot of companies are actually looking for each piece of the STAR. Amazon in particular wants to really know the S, the T, the A, and the R. For every other company, I would argue just use PAR. It's a little bit easier, and it's really a personal preference. What are the most valuable skills for employers, professional, or connections on a personal level? What are the most valuable skills? I think it depends on the job, right? So your skills are, the needs they've got for your skills are based on what the job is you're going after. So feel free to add like a follow-on to that, or we can talk about it more. So like an IT job would be very different than an HR job. Or I'm missing the question, in which case I apologize.
Yeah, I think we're probably missing the question. Do you mean some personal skills, or what, like what are the most valuable skills for employers, professional or connections? Oh, okay. What are the most valuable skills for employers? Professional or
Oh,
oh,
oh, oh, professional. But
okay. I think you
yeah,
get Galina, if you can please say express it, because I'm having some problems understanding the question as well.
yeah, I think I got what she's saying. So
Yeah.
I think what she's saying is, do you want to talk mostly about professional or personal stuff? So in general, and please feel free to correct me, you want to talk about job related, or if you don't have jobs yet, academic related projects mostly. throwing in some other problem solving or personal or non-professional project is fine too. Notice I said destination imagination and problem solving skills at my daughter's school. I did not talk about solving a problem in my home with my child, right? Or I did not talk about a problem I dealt with my mother-in-law or something, right? I would not do that at all. So start with professional, I would say 75% or 85% of your conversation should come from your professional / academic experience, but you can throw in some other things if it's coaching, outside activities, but not highly personal. And if that's not what you meant, please feel free to speak up. Okay, so the end of the interview. So we've talked about two parts of the interview: your elevator pitch, which they typically ask for in the beginning or will happen in early part of your interviewing, and then how to deal with interview questions, which could be questions off your resume or standard interview questions. Covered those. But at the end of the interview, you should have questions prepared for them. So here's a list of do's and don'ts, right? So we say have 5 or 6 questions prepared. Do you need to ask all 5 or 6? Maybe, maybe not. Depends on time. But the problem is if you have 1 or 2 prepared, they may get answered along the way and then you've got 0. And the one thing you don't want to do is have no questions because you seem disinterested. And because you don't know how the interview is going to go, having them prepared in advance is easy to do. It is one thing you can carry to an interview written down. You should not carry answers to interview questions written down because you're not going to open your notebook and find the specific question and read it. You need to do that in a conversational way. But if somebody says, do you have any questions for me? You can flip open your notebook and say, yes, I do. And certainly, especially if you prepared these based on that company, you will look more prepared doing it that way. You don't have to have them written down. You can have them in your head if you're good at remembering things. Do ask the interviewer about their individual personal experience at the company. It's perfectly fine. Or even their career experience. That is absolutely lovely. And it endears you to them if you seem interested in them. So that's a very good thing to do. Don't ask them questions about things that can be easily Google searched. And I'm going to give you a perfect example for that in a minute. Be specific in your questions about company culture. So this is the one. I love company culture questions. I do not like, what is your company culture? Why? Because in almost all cases, it is written someplace on the internet. Whether it's real or not, it is written on the internet. So it seems like you didn't even bother looking, whether you did or not. However, there's another point to this, which is what they write in the internet and what really is true may be 2 different things. So to me, the way to handle this one is, hey, I read on your website that the company culture is described as, and then list the adjectives they use. How would you describe the culture in your organization? Or would you add any adjectives to that list of culture adjectives? That way you're saying, hey, I researched, but I want to know more. And this might also expose some different things, the truth about the company culture, et cetera. So I think that's a much better developed culture question than what do you believe the company culture is? It's avoid political conversation, avoid salary conversation until they bring up salary, and then depending on the context, avoid it until it's time to do it, and avoid family. Now, I'm going to guess the vast majority of the people on this call are women. This goes for both men and women, but I believe, this is a personal opinion, I believe it goes more for women than men. So I think we've come a long way in my career. So I entered the workforce in 1981 as an engineer, and things are a lot better about how people think about women in the workplace than they were then. And they weren't even that bad then, but have come a long way. And most people know the right things to say and do and act and make decisions on. But there is no reason to bring up something that some one person in a group of 100 might use as a reason to not hire you. Again, I do not believe most people care about family. They probably love talking about family, but don't bring it up because it's not pertinent to the job. And it's illegal for them to ask you anything. So if you bring up your family or a child or an issue, they may feel very uncomfortable trying to ask a clarifying question, which has left some unknown information on the table. So just avoid it. I hate saying it because my prized project is my daughter who's now 32, but you got to keep it to the things that are pertinent to the job. Once you've got the offer, talk about your family all the time, right? There's nothing, it's not data pertaining to your job except under rare circumstances. An example I would use is somebody told me once when I asked somebody likes to do in the spare time, he said, I like to coach I am the coach for my child's whatever team, soccer team. And I will, and I don't think it was a bad answer. But one of the things I did take in my head was, I wonder if this guy is expecting to out of work early, right? It is one of those things that I don't know the laws well enough to ask a follow-on question about that. So I just didn't ask it. It didn't matter in this case for this person's advocacy for the job, but it just see how it opens a door that could have someone thinking. So hopefully I haven't beaten that one too much. All right, and then convey your knowledge. Talk, like I said earlier, I've read that, or in networking with person A and person B, I learned that. Can you tell me more? It's a great way to ask a question because it also shows you've done research and put effort and shows passion for the role. And don't ask things that make you sound desperate. So an example is, be surprised, did I get the job? Do not ask that. Do not ask that. You can ask next, what are the next steps? Or what is the time frame for making a decision? But don't ask, did I get the job? So anyway, hopefully this will guide you. When you come through Candorful, after we do that intake, we send an email out to you giving you the links to schedule interviews. There's also a link that comes out with a great article about asking questions, which gives you like 24 different good questions to ask. So there's a lot of resources out there for that. And I think I would like to use the rest of the meeting for answering questions. I have more basic stuff here, but I think it's really more important to ask questions. I do want to bring up the point that the sooner you start practicing for interviews and networking, the better you're going to do. So, don't wait till a week before to practice interviews. Start now. Even if you're going to be interviewing a year from now, start now. If you're interviewing 2 weeks from now, start now. If you started interviewing a week ago, start now, right? Just don't delay at all. All right, let's take some questions.
Any questions you guys have? Raise your hand using the reaction or just type it in the chat.
Don't be shy. I may have put you all to sleep. While we're waiting for people to get bold, I want to tell you that 80% of jobs are achieved by networking. 70% of jobs are not even posted. So if you don't network, which is a difficult thing and uncomfortable thing to do, you've reduced your success to getting a job to a very small amount. As someone I spoke with yesterday, like in the job search, if you're going to just apply online, it's like trying to win the lottery, right? So networking is important. I know it's really hard to do. I highly recommend the book, The 2-Hour Job Search by Steve Dalton. And yeah, and Alexandra, we have a question.
Mhm.
Yes, hello.
Look,
The question is about the position. So I have a really big career gap, like 10 years ago, and all my experience was in Europe, not here. So right now, every time I'm talking to some resources we have for career, and etc., like everybody will tell me you have to tailor your resume for the position you want to apply. And I am in the place when I do not know the position yet. I cannot understand where I am fit. Okay. And
so
so,
what are the jobs you've had in when you were in Europe?
oh my gosh, I was a manager. I was,
But in what industry?
um, it was, um, you probably not like didn't have it here. It was close to utilities, but it wasn't because it was private company. And my last job, I worked in a retail company, but I was like in between the departments. I helped with database development, and so it was like in between. It's close to implementation specialist, something like system
What I'm gonna,
analytics, business
what I'm gonna
analytics.
say
Yeah.
is,
So
this is hard, right? Is what you're talking about is hard.
yes.
You're trying to figure it all out. What I would say is, it it's going to be a little bit of a long answer. I apologize. You need to. I'm going to try to like say what you need and then try to give you ways to do that.
Mhm.
You need to figure out what skills you got from those different positions, and then figure out what roles here. It's not going to be different than at home. What your former home? What that makes you qualified for? What similar skills require that? And the way to do that, obviously, is reading, and yeah, you can use ChatGPT and all that. The way to really do that is to network, because when you network, what you're really doing is doing what's called informational interviews. And this book is all about that. And you're going to go in and you're going to ask people questions. You're not going to talk about yourself. Let's say you had an informational interview with me. You're going to ask me about my experience. You're going to ask me about trends in the industry I work in, insights that I have about the industry, what type of skills, uh, would be required for people in my industry. And in that process, you're going to make a connection, and B, learn something about the industry and where you might fit in. Now, this is going to take work. It's going to take time. It's going to take, I hate to say this, but 50 or 100 meetings. Maybe it's 10, maybe it's 150. I don't know, but it's going to take time to do this. And because it's such an ambiguous, difficult process, it is why I am an evangelist about this book. Because without this, it just feels like I'm supposed to meet with a few people and tell them about myself, which doesn't really get you anywhere. You need to learn about industry and make connections, and you will find your way there. Because what I hear is you've got a lot of skills, because data, that's everywhere. That's every industry, right? Management, that's every industry. So perhaps your experience is applicable in a lot of places, but you've got to be able to express it for maybe the TJ Maxx Corporation. That's not the right name. And be prepared to talk about it in that industry, or e-commerce with Amazon, and be prepared to talk about it in that industry. And that is what is meant by modifying your resume, right? But you kind of need to get the information, which will come from these conversations. And I know that what I just said is overwhelming.
Yeah, I know. And like for me, the biggest question is even this experience will be relevant. It was 10 years ago.
Well, it
I
is what it
understand.
is,
Yeah,
though.
it's transferable skills. We
It
have
is what it
transferable
is. I had
skills.
a 6 year
But
gap on my resume when I went back to work, and it took me 2 years to find a job because I wasn't networking. It is what it is. That is what it is. So things you can do about that: learn to talk about it, embrace the fact that you've had a gap, speak briefly about that in your elevator pitch. I stayed home for 10 years because of, and then finish that sentence, which you can practice with us, really tight and quick, and then go on to the things you are doing. Other things you can do, and you might already have done them: volunteer in a way where you can use those skills now, at a university, for a symposium. We can talk more about this. You can also take a certification course, and that will show up as current, in one of those fields. But it is what it is. That 10-year gap's not going to go away. So you kind of have to embrace it and figure out a way to signal you're ready and you're bringing pertinent skills now. Which
will
is
you interview me without me knowing the position I am applying for?
no, but Candorful will. But do you mean me? Will I interview you for a role if I were a hiring
Yeah,
manager?
yeah. No, I'm sorry.
No.
I'm asking about Candorful.
Oh, yes, of course. Yeah. We have people come to us totally unsure. And some of the coaches will say, "Where's your job description?" And you'll say, "I don't know. I want to get some experience interviewing first." And they'll get it. They won't have a problem with that. But you also need to be networking in parallel. You need to be doing both things.
Okay, I got it. Thank you.
And there's another organization out there called Forblock, FOURBLOCK. which does a lot with networking cohorts, 4block.org. Look into them as well as Hiring Your Heroes. These organizations will help some with this as well. And we're not in competition with each other, right? So the foreign born military spouses, Candorful, Hiring Your Heroes, 4block, we're all trying to get to the same place. ACP, America's Corporate Partners, another great organization for building a network. And matter of fact, Alexandra, look into ACP, and I'm going to give you the name of somebody. Luckily, my
I,
cat.
I
We
know
actually
about
have a partnership with SCP. If we come, if you go through programs and services, we will send you a direct referral,
Do
just
it.
like we are doing with because we have them. Yes, Leslie is our, but we also have someone else who is our direct contact for referral.
Perfect.
So, yep. This is this is amazing. Thank you so much, Alexandra, for the question. Always feel free to go to our website as well. We have, if you go under the resources we have, they are all put in terms of the topic employment. You will find there everything. You will find hiring our heroes, you will find Candorful, you will find SCP, you will find all of them with the explanation of what they do, their website and everything, because we know you need a lot, and so we put it all there. We have some, okay, this is iPhone, but so I don't know the name. Hello, do you start practicing for interview after you have applied for the job and they schedule you for an interview? Nope.
Please practice as soon and as early as you can, long before you're applying for jobs. Because the minute you're in the midst of the job application process with the kids, the family, the other things going on, adding interview practice into that in a short amount of time is actually a challenge. So practice now, and then you can practice then too.
Thank
Just
you.
get started.
Get started. And sometimes the turnaround time between an interview and a job, here's what you need to do might be very short. So by the time you go to Candorful that you want to apply, you want to schedule an interview, there might not be people within that time. So you want to schedule them way ahead, because if you were interviewed, if you applied today, you've been called for an interview next week. There might not be someone at Candorful to do your interview this week. So
There probably
we
would be,
want to
but the problem
prepare.
is whether they match. So we've got plenty of coaches, but each one just puts a couple hours on the schedule because they're volunteers, right? So if you wanted to practice interviewing on Saturday, today's Thursday, the soonest you can get an intake meeting is 24 hours from now, because we won't let you do it sooner. It protects the schedule of our coaches, right? So if you were lucky enough to get an intake at 2 p.m. tomorrow, so 2 p.m. Eastern time, then the soonest you'd be able to get an interview would be 24 hours after that, right? So there's no reason to wait. Even if you're way out from interviewing, you might as well get started now, and then you can do a couple now and then throw in a couple later in the middle of the interviewing, because we're not going to stop you
Mhm.
from doing 15 of them. We're not going to stop you. Last question, because I actually have another meeting coming right up at 2.
Yes, I don't
It's
see
been
any other question, but I see Galina posted something there, guys. That might be, it might be a resource for you. I think it's a link to something that is going to be helpful. So thank you, Pat, for all the knowledge you've shared with us today. Thank you so much for everyone. Before I wrap up, again, thanks for your insights. We deeply, I really appreciate, and I know our community has definitely gained. If you have gained something from Pat today, please give her a thumbs up, give her the clapping emoji, the stars, whatever you can. Let's appreciate Pat and the time that she has taken to be with us today. To everyone who's here, thank you for being part of this conversation. And please remember, we have more inspiring and informative sessions lined up in the coming months. Almost every Friday, we have something that's going on for you. So please keep an eye out for our announcements. I will share our socials in there so you can go and um, follow, because that's where we announce everything. I am now just dropping a link to something on the chat, which is our feedback form. Please share with us what you think about today's session. And lastly, reaching foreign-born spouses like us is still one of our biggest challenges because more than 65% of us are isolated somewhere and don't know that there's a community for them. So if you know someone who could benefit from this space, please invite them, okay? Share the website, share a Facebook group, share resources like the playbook. So let's make sure no spouse is left behind. That's what we're here for. Till next time, please take care and have a wonderful rest of your day. Don't forget, please don't forget to fill in the form. I'm just dropping our socials right there that you can follow. Otherwise, thank you so much, Pat, and see you soon.
Thank you, Lydia, and thank you, everybody. I got to drop, but it was such a pleasure, and you know how to find me. Take
Thank you.
care.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you, Joanna. Guys, feel free to leave at your pleasure, but don't forget to follow the socials and don't forget to fill our form. And if you have any questions, further questions or follow-up, please email us info@fpmnetwork.org. It's 2 p.m. and I am going to stop recording.